scarecrow. In the quiet farming community of Harvest Hollow, whispers floated about a peculiar scarecrow named Strawman. Its sunken, painted eyes and straw-like texture were uncanny. Its silence, eerie. It stood watch over the old Fallowfield farm, casting long, ominous shadows at dusk. One harvest moon night, I found myself before it. Its eyes seemed to glimmer with an unnatural light, holding a gaze that felt too sentient. When a breeze rustled its straw hand, it appeared to alter subtly, the fingers lengthening, and the straw texture seemed almost flesh-like.
Will you stay a while?
A voice, soft like the rustling of dry leaves, seemed to come from it. When the painted mouth seemed to curve into a smile, it was a horrifying parody of joy. As the terrifying realization engulfed me, Strawman's nocturnal vigil had just begun. The lonely knock. Deep in the craggy peaks, a hermit, ancient as the stone, dwelled alone. One stormy eve, he heard a chilling knock at his door. So unexpected it echoed through his humble abode. Curiosity overwhelmed fear, and he creaked the door open, only to find emptiness. Returning inside, the knocking resumed, this time louder, driving icy fingers down his spine. He flung the door wide, seeking the intruder, but the storm was his only visitor. Despair overcame him. The insistent knock, a taunting reminder of his solitude. Days turned into weeks. The knocking persisted, but no soul ever stood at his threshold. One day, the knocking ceased. Relief washed over him. The silence was brief, though. From within his hut, he heard it. The same eerie knock, but this time, it was at the inside of his door. His heart froze. His isolation, it seemed, was a myth. He was never truly alone. Due desert. In the sleepy hamlet of Harrow's End, secrets were told about the specter of the Silent Sentinel, an entity of unknown origin. Her story was interlaced with veiled whispers and hushed murmurs of past horrors. On a moonless eve, a man came, unseen and unheard, his intentions hidden in the shadow of malevolence. An unsettling frost gripped the air, replacing the night's lull with an eeriness that pierced his core. He halted, his breath hitched. A ghostly figure emerged, her presence as silent as the grave, yet thunderously profound. She stared, an unspoken accusation hanging heavily between them. In the reflection of her spectral eyes, he saw a parade of faces, mirroring his past. The realization took root in his heart, a frosty dread reaching his marrow. In frantic desperation, he fell upon the village center, the symbolic heart of Harrow's End. His guilt, as tangible as the ancient noose tree, spurred him into a confession that echoed through the quiet night. As dawn broke, the Sentinel's unspoken justice prevailed, and Harrow's End rested, an eerie tranquility replacing its long-standing shroud of fear. In the heart of my sleepy hometown lay a decrepit house. They said it was haunted. At exactly 3:13 a.m. every night, the ghost of a former inhabitant, a child, was heard crying. I didn't believe it. I was too logical for that. One restless night, I decided to debunk the myth. Armed with a flashlight and a camera, I crept into the house at 3 a.m. I held my breath as the clock struck 3:13 a.m., yet nothing happened. Smiling, I clicked my camera as proof of my victory over superstition. As I prepared to leave, the camera beeped low battery and died. It was then that I heard it. A soft whimper, growing into desperate sobs, resonated through the eerie silence. An icy shiver ran down my spine. I turned around but found no source of the sound. The house was empty, save for me. The next morning I retrieved the camera. Despite the battery dying, it had captured one last image. In the photo, just behind me, was the translucent figure of a sobbing child. My blood froze. The logical part of me shattered. The haunting was real. I can still hear the crying at 3:13 a.m. The submarine. Once a titan of exploration, the magnificent vessel now lay helplessly entombed, trapped beyond the reach of hope. Flickering lights created ghostly shadows across the cold steel interior, illuminating faces etched with deep-seated fear. A ceaseless knock sounded against the hull, a sinister Morse code from the abyss. Each chilling knock amplified the air's tension, resonating through the steel walls and into their hearts, stirring claustrophobic terror. The knocking became their pulse, beating to the rhythm of their dread. In the ocean's abyss lay an entity, cold and alien, hammering away at their fragile reality. The tightness wasn't merely a feeling, but a sentient terror consuming them. As the final knock echoed, it carried the unspeakable truth. They were not alone in their steel coffin, but part of a chilling undersea requiem with a hauntingly inescapable finale.